Gantt chart, Kanban. Gantt chart, Kanban. Gantt chart or Kanban. Hello everyone, Scott Friesen here at Simpletivity, helping you to get more done and enjoy less stress. And if you manage projects, and especially if you work with teams, there's a good chance that you are using either a Gantt chart or a Kanban board. But which one is better? Which one is ideal for you? Well, in today's video, we're going to be looking at both the advantages and disadvantages of each, so you can pick the right tool for you. But before we begin, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Gantt Pro. If you are looking for Gantt chart software, you're going to want to check out Gantt Pro. No matter how complex your projects are, no matter how many teams or dependencies are involved, Gantt Pro can cover it all. If you want to add attachments and comments, if you want to track your project progress and assign tasks to individual team members, Gantt Pro has you covered. So if you'd like to learn more and receive a special discount, be sure to check out the link in the description below. So let's start our comparison with the Gantt chart. Here I have an example project. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have my individual tasks, which make up the project themselves. Now, each task has both a start date and an end date, and of course, the duration here identified in number of days is calculated for me. But the real power of a Gantt chart is the visual representation, which is going on the right-hand side of the screen. So here you can see I have some color-coded bars. Each of them represents the duration of a given task. So the top bar identifies the project as a whole. So here I can see if I started this project on September 10th, I should be complete by October 5th, at the end of day, October 5th. But the real power, the real advantage of using a Gantt chart are the dependencies. And here you can see, not only do I see the visual representation of how long this particular task is going to take, but I also see what else is dependent on it. So let's say, for example, I want to install this software across departments, and I'm scheduled to have that finished by September 21st. What this is telling me is that the soonest that I can begin delivering the workshops is the following Monday. Of course, we're not working, or in this particular example, we're not working on the weekend, so the earliest we can do those workshops is on September 24th. But what if this goes extremely well? What if installing this software takes a little bit less time than we predicted? I'm going to drag this back a couple of days. And what happens now? Well, because of that dependency, everything else shifts accordingly. So now I can start those workshops a bit earlier. And if we go to our due date, we will be finished by October 3rd. We're going to be finished in advance. And this is one of the biggest advantages of using a Gantt chart. You can quickly and easily either change the duration or the start and end date on the left-hand side of the screen, or you can simply drag the bars on the right-hand side of the screen. And in this case, now I can start reviewing feedback earlier. I'll be finished an entire week earlier, according to the Gantt chart data. Now, one of the disadvantages that you're going to want to look out for with a Gantt chart is if there's too much detail required. Sometimes a Gantt chart is overkill depending on the type of project that you're involved with. In this case, I've just got a very simple example with only about 5 different tasks. But think if you have something quite a bit larger, and maybe you don't have quite as many dependencies going on in your project. If it is a lot more detailed and you are still wanting to go the Gantt project route, I would encourage you to get familiar with minimizing and maximizing sub-tasks or sub-projects or milestones within your particular project. But if you have not tried using a Gantt chart, I would encourage you to do so. See if it's the right fit for your team and for your projects. Next, let's take a look at the Kanban board view. Here we are looking at the exact same project that we just saw in our Gantt chart, but in a different layout. Now, for those not familiar with a Kanban board represents different stages in a particular workflow. So here we see 4 different columns: open, in progress, done, and closed. And the purpose in this particular example is to have all of your tasks tasks start in the open column, and then as they are started, they get moved from left to right. So as someone starts working on this particular project or this particular task, it is in progress. Once it is finished, it may move to the done column, and sometimes you may want a particular sign off, or maybe there's some checking that needs to happen before you can officially close or finish that particular task. But as you can see, things move from the left to the right-hand side of the board. Now, of course, you will notice there's not nearly as much detail that we can see at this first level. Now, if I was to double-click on any of these tasks, I can still see the start and end duration. I can see the total time, all of the data that we saw within our Gantt chart. But one of the advantages of a Kanban board is to get a cleaner, somewhat higher level view of what is going on in your project. But depending on the scope, depending on what you are trying to achieve, Kanban may not be the ideal method for you. One of the disadvantages is the lack of dependencies. So for example, it can be very difficult to see if this particular task is dependent on something else, and if that's going to prevent it from moving it into the next column. But if you're looking for a cleaner way, or maybe an executive level way of viewing your project, the Kanban board view may be the right one for you. So, Gantt chart or Kanban, which is the right view for you? I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments. Have you worked with both a Gantt chart and a Kanban board? Which one do you prefer and why? I'd love to hear from you, so be sure to let me know down below. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Simpletivity, I would encourage you to do so. Remember, being productive does not need to be difficult. In fact, it's very simple.